What's up, duders? Time for your daily dose of internet madness. The man my wife cheated with was actually her other secret husband. I never thought I'd be the guy typing something like this, but life has a way of making you eat your own assumptions. I'm a 37-year-old normalish guy, married for 8 years to my wife, Lila, who, up until recently, I believed was just quirky, artistic, a bit forgetful, maybe too into improv theater, but overall loyal. Loyal enough that I didn't question the late-night art studio sessions, the weekend creative retreats, or her obsession with color-coded calendars she never let me see. Looking back, the clues were scattered everywhere, like the breadcrumbs of a very lazy Hansel and Gretel. But I didn't pick them up. I swept around them. Vacuumed right over them. The discovery happened 3 months ago, on a Wednesday that smelled like burnt toast and wilted houseplants. I'd been asked to leave work early after a system outage, and I decided to surprise Lila with her favorite takeout. She wasn't supposed to be home yet. She told me she was at some workshop about experimental pottery, which sounded suspicious even then, like the name of a cult that expresses devotion through asymmetrical bowls. But when I walked into our house, I heard voices. 2 voices. One was hers, airy and excited. The other was a man's, deep, calm, with the kind of smoothness that made me briefly jealous before I even knew the full context. I froze halfway through the hallway, takeout bag dangling from my hand like a limp paper witness. Their voices drifted from the living room. I crept closer, my heartbeat thudding like a mallet hitting raw meat. "Do you ever think he suspects?" the man asked. I couldn't see them yet, but I could picture the exact expression she would make, eyebrows raised playfully, mouth twisted like she was hiding a punchline. "No," she said. "He trusts me. And I trust you." I entered the living room. They were holding hands. I expected screaming or at least the kind of awkward gasp that happens when you bump into someone in a public restroom. Instead, they both just stared at me as though I'd walked into the wrong theater production. "Who is this?" I croaked, pointing at him like he was a malfunctioning appliance. Lila's face strained. The man stood up slowly, like he'd rehearsed the movement. "Hello," he said. "I'm Connor. Her husband." I blinked. "I'm her husband." "Yes," he nodded. "Also true." For several seconds I couldn't compute language. My brain was buffering, loading a cursed update. Then Lila jumped between us like a referee in a sport that had no right to exist. Okay, just let me explain," she said. "It's not what it looks like." "It looks," I said, "like you have 2 husbands." "I can explain," she repeated, as though she'd been practicing the line in the mirror. I sat on the armchair, mostly because my legs had filed a resignation letter. From the stumbling, fumbling, absolutely ridiculous explanation that followed, I learned that she married Connor 10 years ago. They separated unofficially after 2 years but never divorced. They stayed friends, then stayed more than friends, then became not quite separated but still technically married partners again. Then she met me, married me, and instead of picking a lane, she just decided to drive down both at once using emotional all-wheel drive. Apparently she'd convinced herself that because she wasn't emotionally ready to divorce Connor, but also genuinely in love with me, she deserved both relationships simultaneously. She spoke about it like she was fostering 2 rescue dogs and couldn't bear to choose between them. Connor seemed embarrassed but not surprised. I think he was used to her logic bending like copper wire in a microwave. I asked how long this had been going on. Connor answered, "The whole time." I felt something inside me unravel, like a rope snapping one fiber at a time. I asked them both to leave. Connor apologized before he went. He apologized so much I almost forgave him just so he'd stop. Lila cried and said she never wanted to hurt me. She said she'd planned to tell me eventually, which is the most useless timestamp ever invented. When they were gone, I sat in the quiet house and listened to the sound of my own confusion echo around the room. I thought the betrayal would feel like fire, but instead it felt cold, like frozen grief pressed against my ribs. The next few weeks were a blur of paperwork and silence. She sent long messages I didn't answer. Connor emailed me once apologizing again, as though he was the human embodiment of a customer service refund policy. "I'm filing for divorce. I'm not sure what Connor will do, but I hope he chooses self-preservation. I don't hate either of them. I don't even fully understand them. I just want my life back. Or maybe a new one entirely." I guess that's it. I wrote this out because I needed to put it somewhere other than my own head. If anyone reading this has ever lived through something similar, I'm sorry. Truly. Okay, pause. Deep breath. Stretch your emotional hamstrings. I know this man is hurting, but can we acknowledge how absurdly gentle he is? If I walked in on someone holding hands with my spouse while discussing my ignorance like I'm a decorative houseplant, I'd combust into confetti. Confetti with opinions. But bless this guy, he's processing betrayal like it's a spilled cup of tea. Well, no use crying. But we are definitely mopping this up. To anyone listening, please do not have 2 husbands. Or 2 wives. Or any combo thereof unless all parties have signed up voluntarily and wholeheartedly. That's not a relationship, that's project management. Anyway, onward. Update. It's been a while. I wasn't sure I'd ever come back to write an update, but life insisted on continuing, so here I am. A surprising thing happened a few weeks after the initial earthquake of my discovery. I stopped feeling humiliated. The shame evaporated, leaving something else in its place, perspective. And, unexpectedly, relief. The divorce is almost finalized. I've moved into a small, sunlit apartment 2 neighborhoods away from the old house. It has creaky floors and a shower that whistles like an off-key bird, but it's mine. My space. My solitude. The first few nights I slept on an air mattress, surrounded by boxes, rain tapping the windows like a polite reminder that the world kept going. I unpacked slowly, rediscovering old hobbies like fishing and sketching, things I hadn't made time for during the emotional circus of the past few years. Apparently betrayal clears your calendar. I didn't hear from Lila much after the initial flood of mea culpas. Eventually she sent a final message. She and Connor are taking time apart to reflect. I tried not to laugh. It felt too much like a delayed punchline. Connor emailed again. But this time it wasn't an apology. He told me, in the kindest phrasing he could manage, that he admired how I handled everything. He said he hoped I didn't let this ruin my belief in love. I didn't respond. But I didn't resent it either. At least he meant well. Something else has changed, too. I noticed myself noticing people again. Not romantically, just humanity in general. I never realized how much of my emotional bandwidth was quietly siphoned off for years, trying to interpret Lila's weird evasions and odd absences. Now my mind is open again, like a window that's finally unstuck. I'm not in a rush to date. I'm enjoying the quiet. The routine. The feeling of every decision being mine alone. I bought a rug last week without needing to compromise on its color or pattern. It felt like freedom, which is both satisfying and embarrassing. Imagine being thrilled over a rug. But that's where I am, and I'll take it. If you're reading this and you've been betrayed, you will rebuild. It won't be the same house, but the new one might have better lighting. I don't hate Lila. I don't hate Connor. I don't hate myself. I'm just moving forward. Thanks to anyone who cared enough to read this. And there it is. Our guy didn't just survive, he molted into a healthier emotional creature. Good for him. Some of you reading this may be yelling at the screen like, buddy, they both suck, and yes, they do. But healing isn't about collecting villains like Pokemon. Sometimes it's about stepping outside the wreckage, dusting yourself off, and marveling at how light you feel when you're no longer lugging someone else's chaos around. Before I sign off, let me offer a gentle nudge to all of you. Do not ignore red flags that glow brighter than a nuclear exit sign. If your partner has creative retreats every weekend and guards their calendar like it contains state secrets, maybe ask questions. Or at least peek at the calendar. Curiosity saves lives. Or at least saves you from polymarital surprise twists. Personally, I think this man's next chapter is going to be peaceful, maybe even joyful. He's earned it. And you, yes, you, reading this, tell me, what's the wildest plot twist you've ever had in a relationship? Don't worry, I'm just here with popcorn and gentle judgment. That's all folks. Don't forget to update the video. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next one. Doot doot.